Hi everybody, my name's Andrew and today I'm driving my new B9 Audi S4. Although you will have seen this car in my most recent video at Cars and Coffee, today's video is actually not about this car. It's actually about the Ram 1500 that I just got rid of and traded in to get this car. Because, like I typically do with my cars on this channel, I wanted to do sort of an ownership wrap-up, talk about how much it cost me and specific things that I liked and disliked about it. So, once we get off this very noisy bridge, we're going to continue to go for a drive here and talk about some of those things. If this is the first video on this truck that you're watching, I'll introduce it for you real quick. It was a 2019 Ram 1500 new body style, not the classic. It was a bighorn, Hemi, four-wheel drive. Had some decent options on it. It was a fairly loaded up bighorn. Nice truck. But I ultimately just got rid of it because I don't actually like driving a truck every day, as it turns out. I'm more happy driving something like this S4. And I'm actively looking for a cheap beater truck right now to buy to use for actual truck stuff. But anyway, I chose the Ram over the competition because ultimately, in my opinion, it's the most comfortable truck and the best riding. Even without the air suspension, I think it's the best riding truck in the segment. The interior, even on the lower trims, was way ahead of the GM trucks. The new F-150 is very nice, and I would have considered one of those had they been in my budget, because obviously the new F-150 didn't come out until 21, so the current generation trucks are still a little bit too expensive for me. Same thing with the new Tundra. I really like the new Tundra. It also rides really well, has plenty of technology, obviously, but I'm not going to spend 60 grand for an SR5. So, things I like. As I just mentioned, the ride quality was one of them. I've seen plenty of other people online and people I know in person that agree with me on the fact that the Ram does ride really nice. Obviously still rides like a truck. I mean, there's not much you can do about the basic design and construction, of a truck platform, but either way. Something else I liked, which is partially just trucks in general, is how much storage space there is, right? Obviously, it's big, so you are going to fit more stuff in it than you are in something like this, for instance, but I have to say that Ram did have some good storage solutions. You had the Ram bins in the floor, which were very useful. It was a good place for me to store tools and ratchet straps and things like that. You had, on some trucks, on some Rams, you can get what they call the Ram boxes, which are basically lockable compartments on the sides of the bed, which do impede your bed space a little bit, but some people may find those very useful. I think I probably would have, to be honest. And then also cup holders. I mean, again, not Ram specific necessarily, but there were, I think in total, 14 cup holders on the inside of that thing for a maximum of 5 people. Because there were 2 in the front of the center console, 2 in the back of the center console. There were 2 in the armrest in the back seat, and then 2 in each door. So yeah, I think that's 14 in total. One thing I did do quite often with the Ram was towing my little trailer. Funny enough, it's actually a trailer that I bought when I had the BMW, the white one, and I pulled it behind that car. So since it's just a little 5x8 utility trailer, it actually looked a little bit goofy behind the giant truck. But anyway, I did pull it rather often with the truck. And something that I noticed was the blind spot monitoring system on the truck. Once you connected the trailer, it knew that you had connected the trailer, and it would automatically detect the length using the radar sensors, and then it would tell you if there was something in your trailer's blind spot as well. I have to say, that is pretty useful. Although, on the other hand, I wish that my Ram did have more towing related features, because you can get the sort of the backup assist, the steering assist like you can on the Fords and whatnot, but mine didn't really have any of that. Not that I have a problem with backing up trailers, but would have been nice to have. I should clarify that is a little bit trim level specific. Obviously, if I had gotten a higher trim level Laramie or Limited or whatever, there was a higher chance of the truck having that option, but either way. All right, moving on to some things that I didn't like as much, or some things that annoyed me a little bit. We'll continue with the inside of the truck, actually, because one of the big ones was the lack of power ports, the lack of really anything other than just USB. Now, there were 4 USB ports in the front, 2 USB-A, 2 USB-C, but there actually weren't any in the back at all, which is moderately annoying. And I've seen other Ram Bighorns that have them in the back, so I don't know why mine didn't, but either way. More of an issue than that was the fact that there was literally one 12-volt socket in the entire truck, and it's on the top of the dashboard too, which doesn't make any sense to me. So I found that particularly annoying because I run both a dash cam and a radar detector. So to be able to plug multiple things in, I have to use a splitter in this instance. And to do so, I had to plug the splitter into the top of the dashboard, run that wire down the center stack into the center console, and then run the wires from the radar detector and the dash cam back up the dashboard to the windshield. So it just looked kind of dumb, and it's unnecessarily complicated, right? But anyway, if you don't need to plug a whole bunch of things into 12 volt on a regular basis, then that won't bother you. Also on the inside of the truck, the parking sensors and the rear cross traffic alert noises were incredibly loud. I mean, even on the lowest setting, I had everything to the lowest volume setting for those, and they were still way too loud. To the point where the rear cross traffic alert noise would actually scare me sometimes. It was that loud. Because I wouldn't be expecting, I'd be like backing out of a driveway or something, and obviously I'm looking so I can see that the cars are coming, but then there's just this incredibly loud beeping like something's going to explode. But anyway, worse than that though is the fact that both of those noises, mainly just the parking sensors, completely override whatever music you're listening to. Because in some cars, when the parking sensors go off, they'll beep, and then it'll sort of turn the music volume down a little bit so you can hear the beeping better. But no, in the Ram, for whatever reason, they shut the music off completely until they stopped beeping, which was kind of annoying because if I'm, say, just getting home and I'm listening to a song that I really want to finish, before I go inside, and then I'm backing in my driveway and the parking sensors go off because it thinks I'm going to hit the side of the house, my music turns off. Those were really my two biggest dislikes. Something else I did want to mention was the headlights. Not the headlights themselves necessarily. They were the sort of standard LED option, the non-adaptive, the reflector housing ones, but they were perfectly fine. They were plenty bright. They were good. And I like the fact, too, that you can turn the fog lights on with the parking lights. So, sort of at dusk or, just before sunset, you can run around with your running lights and your fog lights on. And since they're all LED, I just think it looks kind of cool. But anyway, during the daytime, though, the actual running lights are incredibly dim to the point where most of the time you really couldn't even see them. And it's not a defect, because every Ram that I've seen with those running lights, or with those headlights, I should say, has the same thing. So it is designed to be like that. There was a running light setting actually in the infotainment system, but when you turn that on, it just turns on the low beams. So that was a little bit of a, not really an annoyance, I guess, but just a little bit of a miss on Chrysler's part. Now that we've got all that out of the way, and I'm done ranting about power sockets, let's talk about ownership costs, because some of you may be interested in that. So the one thing I always like to talk about first is fuel cost, and it's especially topical right now. It was just becoming topical when I actually bought the truck. I had really terrible timing with that, obviously, but either way, and to be honest, that's one of the reasons I got rid of it too, is because I was just really conscious of how much gas I was actually wasting just driving to and from work every day, and obviously I still need a truck, which is why I'm looking for a beater truck, but something like this S4 even is just infinitely better on gas for day-to-day usage. So anyway, I put about 7,500 miles on the truck in 6 months, which is actually less than I have done on most of my cars in the past. I think that is because I was somewhat conscious of how much it was costing me. But either way, I got about 350 miles per tank, give or take, which means that my total fuel cost for 6 months was somewhere around $2,000 or $2,100, $2,200, somewhere in that neighborhood, which obviously for just 6 months is insane. I mean, that is so much money on gas. It cost me, somewhere between $400 and $500 a month, which for comparison, my finance payment on that truck was around $500 a month as well. So that was just way too much money, to be perfectly honest. On the other hand, though, my maintenance cost was pretty much nothing, because I got one free oil change when I bought the truck, and since I only had it for 7,500 miles, I didn't need to change the oil more than once. So I didn't have any other consumable items that I needed to replace, like brakes or anything like that, and didn't have any repair items that needed fixing either. So I did spend way too much money in gas, but I did save, I guess, technically on maintenance. I did, however, buy a set of aftermarket wheels and tires for the truck, as well as a leveling kit, actually. That was part of my plan with the truck, as I was going to level it and put 35s on it, big chunky all-terrains. But as of recording, I have sold both the wheels and the tires, both for what I paid for them, roughly $1,500 a piece. So that money I do have back now. I am still waiting to sell the leveling kit. It's on Facebook Marketplace. It's been on social media. So if you want a leveling kit for a Ram 1500 four-wheel drive, I've got one for you. But no, anyway, I don't normally count mods or stuff like that as sort of a loss anyway, because most of the stuff I do, I tend to be able to resell anyway, so I tend to have sort of a rolling budget for stuff like that from car to car. Obviously stuff like tunes and whatnot you can't really do anything with, but anyway, speaking of buying and selling, though, the last thing that I'm going to talk about is the money that I lost selling the truck, because unfortunately the days of being able to have a car for a year and get all your money back out of it is pretty much gone now, or is starting to be gone, I should say. I mean, honestly, I think I just got kind of lucky with the BMW that's what happened, but the market in general is starting to soften a little bit, and it's especially softening for trucks right now, just with everything going on in the world. So unfortunately, I bought the truck for 40 grand. I didn't pay cash for it, obviously. I financed most of it, but I did buy it for 40 grand, and I traded it in for 38, which is more of a loss than I would have liked for just 6 months, but I had a really difficult time even getting to 38, to be perfectly honest, which I think is due to the market softening, and dealers obviously pay attention to that, and other values like auction values and things like that are slowly going down too. So 38 was sort of the least that I was willing to take. I was trying to get as close to 40 as possible, obviously, but 38 is kind of the least that I was going to take, and that's what I ended up getting. So overall, my total cost to own the Ram 1500 for 6 months and 7,500 miles was roughly $4,000. Depending on the gas variants there, it was probably about $4,200 overall, which isn't great, to be honest. It wasn't my most financially smart car purchase that I've ever made. Really, none of them are, to be fair, but that one was definitely on the lower end of that scale for me. So, oh well, what can you do? Well, I know what you can do is not buy it in the first place, but that's just the way I am. So on that note, it is time to move on from the Ram 1500. If you have a Ram, share your experiences with me in the comments. I always love to talk to people that have the same kind of vehicle as me. And if you enjoyed this video or found it informative, give it a thumbs up. Or consider subscribing for plenty more content with the S4 and other cars to come.